Terry Moran, day 2 of the trial of the 3 men charged in the death of Ahmaud Arbery has concluded. And here are today's trial takeaways. Number 1, the issue of neighborhood safety, with both of the sides, prosecution and defense, weighing in with different perspectives on what level of crime, or lack of crime for that matter, could mean for this neighborhood and consequently for the jury. It's a crucial question in the case. Number 2, the processing of this scene, with the defense attempting to plant seeds of doubt as the prosecution reinforces the narrative that Ahmaud Arbery was chased down, attacked, and ultimately killed. So they're going after that scene and the first officers on it. Number 3, the connection between the McMichaels, Gregory and Travis, and Brian and Roddy Bryan, the defendants here. The defense framing them as strangers. They weren't conspiring. They weren't trying to trap Ahmaud Arbery. They were separated entirely, as the defense line. It seems the prosecution doing their best to convince the jury that this is all connected. For more, let's bring in right now ABC News' Alex Presha, who's at that courthouse in Brunswick, Georgia, along with civil rights attorney Emeka Igwe. And Alex, let me begin with you. So those are some of the most important points we've heard today. Walk us through, in particular, that issue at the end there. The prosecution is trying all 3 for malice murder, that they basically hunted Ahmaud Arbery down and killed him. How's the defense trying to respond in these first few witnesses, the police officers on the scene?
Well, they've tried to make the argument that, again, William Roddy Bryant was just there, that he was a witness in some respect. You heard attorney Goff, who is Brian's attorney, kind of chip away at the idea that that Brian had angled or cut off or cornered Arbery with his questioning of former officer Minshew this afternoon. Also, we heard from attorney Sheffield, who's representing Travis McMichael, who kind of chipped away at the idea that these guys could have been in a conspiracy together, that they were just happened to live in the same subdivision and that they barely knew each other. But then we heard the prosecution come back around and talk about that testimony, specifically from former officer Minshew, who said that Brian had told him as he saw that white truck go down the road, he yelled out, "Have y'all got him cornered yet?" And leading the jury to believe that, look, there was at least some coordination as Brian is watching this play out down his street, that he decides to get in his car and help the McMichaels ultimately corner, or as the prosecution would say, trap Ahmaud Arbery before he's shot to death.
It's important to remember, thank you, Alex, that one of the charges in here is false imprisonment against all the defendants and aggravated murder, a murder associated with a felony, that felony being false imprisonment. And so that's a crucial question. And Emeka Igwe, I'm going to ask you to put on your prosecutor's hat now. You've got some experience on that side as well. What is your opinion on how the prosecution has proceeded so far?
Well, that last witness was not a highlight moment for the prosecution.
That's for sure.
I'm not sure exactly what they were trying to bring out, but it looks like they just didn't properly prepare this witness. You know, during a trial, there shouldn't be any surprises with direct examination witnesses. You should meet with them. You should go over the testimony, and it's almost should be similar to a script. You should know exactly what they're going to say in response to your questions. And in this case, it was clearly a disconnect between the prosecutor and the witness. And it's bad for 2 reasons. One, obviously, you don't want to look like you're not properly prepared. And second of all, there's a thing in law called primacy recency. That is, people tend to retain information that they hear at the beginning and at the end. And to have this witness be the last person the jury hears from before the end of court today is not good for the prosecution.
You know, Emeka, that raises a question. The prosecutors brought in from Cobb County, from Atlanta in this case, because of problems with prosecutors knowing the defendants and other issues in Brunswick there. So I wonder, is there a possibility of friction even between local officers and out-of-town prosecutors?
there's no question that there is, Terry. Keep in mind that two prosecutors in this case had to recuse themselves because of connections. This is a small county. A lot of police officers and prosecutors know these defendants. Remember, the father in this case, Mr. McMichael, he was a former law enforcement. So certainly there's a lot of connections there. And this outside prosecutor, which was brought in order to ensure a fair and impartial trial, is likely running into some hostility. And I think he kind of saw in that last witness. That is very unusual for a police officer, even if he wasn't necessarily on the same page with the prosecutor. A police officer usually go out of their way to help the prosecutor make that case. And in that case, in that last witness, he certainly wasn't doing them any favors and actually seemed more amenable to the questions posed to him by the defense.
Localism may be a factor. Let me go to Alex Presha on that. Alex, this has been, as Emeka says, a real issue to get prosecutors who are not connected to the defendants. It's been a checkered history in this case. Can you just take us through that a little bit and how you're reading? Are you reading anything going on in the courtroom, given the fact that they had to bring prosecutors in from the big city?
Well, I mean, I think that was always going to be concerned whenever you have a case of this magnitude in a town like Brunswick. I mean, it's not the tiniest town here in Georgia, but it's certainly one that has a lot of interconnectivity, right? And so, you know, if you've lived here for a while, chances are you have some sort of connection. And it wasn't just an issue with the prosecution. It was an issue with trying to seat a jury on this case. Oftentimes, we'd see jurors that were struck because one way or another they either knew or had some relationship with the defendants, or they had some relationship with Ahmaud Arbery. And so, I mean, that's been an ongoing concern. And so, you know, you look to bring a prosecutor from, as you put it, the big city outside, coming in here with hopes that that kind of gets away from all of that all of that potential crossover.
But you may end up with friction, with even resentment. And Emeka, we talked about this, but one of the reasons, the main reason probably, that this case came to national attention is what it stands for. Three white men, the prosecution says, hunting down a black man in the neighborhood and killing him on the basis of groundless suspicions at the end of the day. And so we've talked a little bit about it, but how much of a factor do you think that nightmare history that we have and how this seems to crystallize it, how much of a factor will race be?
Race, as I mentioned before, is always a factor in the criminal justice system, and even more so in this case where you have so much history. You have a former Confederate state in Georgia. You have that imagery of three white individuals with guns chasing a black man. And the imageries and the history that conjures up in Georgia, where in the not distant past that was perfectly legal. So you have all of those elements, and then you add to it that the fact that you have 11 white people on the jury and one black person, and you anticipate that if there isn't a conviction, there's going to be a lot of anger and resentment to say that history repeats itself. So you have all these elements that are in this trial, and I think that's why it's captivating so much of the nation, because of the history. And ultimately, this jury is going to be tasked with the responsibility to separate emotions and render a decision based upon the law. But you cannot separate that from the history of Georgia.
And that is a history of Georgia and a history in our country as well. We've covered these trials which raise these issues really for decades. That they are the flashpoints in our justice system. Alex, so let's talk about some of the evidence, that video evidence. First, we're seeing the body cams, and then the video taken there on the scene of the death of Ahmaud Arbery. itself. How do you look at the importance of video in this trial today and moving forward?
Well, might stand out about this particular case is that video is quite possibly the most important evidence here, whether it be that initial cell phone video that we've all seen, whether it be the body camera footage from Officer Minshew, whether it be the body camera footage from Officer Duggan, or whether it be the crime scene photography that we've seen from Investigator Ramos. And now we know that there's at least one other police body camera footage that we might see tomorrow. So I mean, like that's going to play a critical role in this case, and it already has, frankly, whether it be how the scene is processed, and certainly we've seen the defense trying to weed seeds of doubt with the perimeter that was set around that crime scene during the testimony of Investigator Ramos, saying that it may have been possible that at some point during this chase that Ahmaud Arbery had dumped a weapon that was outside of where she had set a scene and where she had investigated, because she was more focused inside than outside. But it's also coming into play in how the prosecution is trying to tie the McMichaels to William Roddy Bryant. And we're seeing through the video of the conversations that these defendants have had with law enforcement after the fact, their demeanor and how they're responding. And it's definitely something that the jury is going to be paying attention to.
All right, Alex Presha and Emeka Igwe, thanks.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.